Hey guys, and welcome back. Let's go ahead and set up an environment here for us to work inside of. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up my browser here, and we're going to head out to the AWS Management Console. And I'm going to create a virtual machine to install our tooling on so that we can create our cluster and set everything up here. So I'm going to head over to the EC2 service here and just do launch instances. And then I'm going to go ahead and just launch an Ubuntu Linux instance here, and I'll just make it like a T3 small, maybe a T3 medium. And this is just going to serve as kind of an administrative server for us to create the cluster and manage it. So it doesn't really need that much storage. Maybe I'll bump it up to 10 gigs just for safety. And then I'll just choose a security group here with inbound TCP/22 so I can SSH into it. And then we'll go ahead and just launch this virtual machine. Now, once this virtual machine spins up, we need to install a couple of tools on it. The first tool that we're going to want to install is called EKS CTL, and this is the CLI tool that you can use. It's an open source tool that you can use to basically spin up a cluster very easily on Amazon Web Services. So I'm going to head over to the GitHub project page here, and they have a simple script that I can use to just install this onto my system. And so I'll copy that code to my clipboard, and then we'll open up a terminal here, and then we'll get SSH'd into our new system here. So I'm going to grab the public IPv4 address here and SSH into it. So we'll do SSH Ubuntu at IP and confirm our host key. And then once we've got our terminal, I'll just right click, or actually I'll do a paste here, paste in this little script that downloads EKS CTL and moves it. And so now I should be able to run EKS CTL at my terminal here. And the other thing we're going to need to do is set up some credentials so that our EC2 instance can manage the account that we're currently working inside of. So to do that, we'll search for the IAM service here. And the IAM service is going to allow us to create a role that we can attach to our EC2 instance and get the appropriate permission. So I'm just going to create a role here called, let's say, I'm going to choose the EC2 use case here. And then I'll attach the administrator access policy. So I'll just search for administrator access, and then we'll just give it a name like EC2 EKS role and hit create. And then we'll just come over to our EC2 instance, and then we'll attach that role. So over here in the EC2 console, we'll just right click, do security, modify IAM role, and then we'll grab that EC2 EKS role, and that should give us the necessary permissions to manage our environment from EKS CTL. So now back here in my terminal on this EC2 instance, I'll do EKS CTL, and then we'll say create, because we want to provision a new cluster. And of course, we want to do EKS CTL create cluster. So I'll do cluster, and then I'll take a look at the help for that. And I'm just going to add on the spot flag here, and that'll allow me to use spot instances. So I'm not paying full price for my nodes on my node pool for this cluster. So I'll run that, and that'll provision our Kubernetes control plane in EKS, and it will also provision our node group as well. Now, once that's done, the other thing that we'll need to do is install a couple of other utilities on our cluster here as well. So there's a utility called kubectx, and this allows you to just easily switch different contexts in your Kubernetes cluster, and that saves you some time. And then there's another utility along with that called kubeNS, and so I'm going to install both of those using the crew plugin manager for kubectl. And so let's go ahead and find how to install crew. We'll do quick start here, and then we'll do the install documentation here, and then we'll just run this bash script on our virtual machine. So over here, I'll go ahead and spin up a new tab while that's running, and I'll SSH into the same VM again. And I'll go ahead and just run this script here to grab crew. So there we go, we've got crew now. And I'm going to add it to my path environment variable as well. And then what we're going to do now is go ahead and install the two utilities that we were just talking about. So that's kubeNS and the kubectx utilities. So I can just run kubectl crew install, and I think I need to get kubectl installed as well. Yeah, sure enough, it's not there. So let's get kubectl installed. I'll just search for kubectl install. We'll find the tools documentation here to install it on Linux, and then we'll go ahead and just run this command here to grab the latest build and then install it into our system. So we'll just run the install command right down here and get that installed, and now I should have kubectl. Great, so now I've got kubectl, and I should be able to do kubectl crew. Let's do kubectl crew. Sure enough, that works, and then I can do install, and I'll do install kubeNS, and that doesn't exist in the plugin index, so I need to find it. So the name of it is actually just CTX, so we'll do kubectl crew install CTX, and then we'll install NS as well. And now we should be able to do kubectl NS, and we'll be able to change contexts and namespaces, and then kubectl CTX will allow us to change contexts, but in this case we won't need to do context management because we're just working with a single cluster here. So let's go ahead and just wait for this cluster to deploy. The one other thing I'll need to do too, actually, is to install the AWS IAM Authenticator. So anytime that you are building an EKS cluster and authenticating to it with EKS CTL, you want to have the IAM Authenticator installed. So I'll go ahead and just grab the AMD64 version of the Authenticator here, and then we'll go ahead and just change the execute bit on it, and then we'll copy it into our home directory under the bin directory, and then we'll add that to our path as well. Cool. So now we should have the AWS IAM Authenticator. So I'll just try to run it, and sure enough, it looks like that's working okay. So we'll come back in a minute once our EKS cluster has finished spinning up. Alrighty, so now you can see that we've completed getting our cluster ready, and we got this little message saying could not find any authenticator commands, but that's okay because in this shell session on the left, we didn't do any of the installation of kubectl or AWS IAM Authenticator or anything like that. So we can actually just go ahead and close that terminal, and we'll continue working in this other terminal where we have all of our commands available. So we should be able to do EKS CTL get cluster. And sure enough, we've got our exciting monster cluster right here, and we should be able to kubectl into it as well. So let's try kubectl version. And sure enough, you can see that we've got our server version right down here, 1.21. And it is complaining that we have a much newer version of kubectl than we should have, but I think we can go ahead and proceed with this for now. So we'll go ahead and get the NGINX controller installed in the very next video. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.